Hello, just a quick hello to the people in my group that I've started off here to introduce myself and a couple of more things, give you an idea of why Massachusetts is called Massachusetts and indeed why Boston is called Boston, because I live presently in the town of Dedham, which is just to the southwest of Boston. We are up here in the Blue Hills. I frequently come up here for a little bit of a hike. Behind us there, in that direction, that is western Massachusetts. Up here to the northwest, you can see right up into New Hampshire. On a clear day, you can see Mount Adirondack up there. It's about, if my memory serves me right, it's about 3,300 feet high, whatever. Now, these are called the Blue Hills. From the distance, they look blue. As you can see from these rocks here, these have a bluish tint on them. That is why they're called the Blue Hills. Excuse me. There's a bit of a pollen up here as well to make my life a little bit more difficult. Anyway, I am a fellow that's been doing private tours in this area for the last 17 years, so I would be somewhat knowledgeable, to say the least, in the history of early Massachusetts, especially the first 200 years, dealing with the Pilgrims, the Puritans, up through the American Revolution, etc., etc., etc. I would have a decent enough knowledge of everything else as well, but that would be my area of expertise, those two. Now, why Massachusetts is called Massachusetts is very, very simple. Back in the year 1614, a fellow by the name of Captain John Smith of Pocahontas fame will have been up here exploring this coastal area. And he will refer, of course, to it as New England, because he wants to see settlements here to recreate Old England, but to make it a new, improved, better version of the Old England indeed. Now, this book he will write later on in the year 1616, description of New England. He will paint a very, very rosy picture, of course, of New England. His intention is to entice people to come out and settle in this general area, which they did in 1620, the Pilgrims, 1630, the Puritans, other settlements, 1626 Salem, 1623 Gloucester, Kennebec up in what today is called Maine, etc. Now, where he got the name Massachusetts it is a Native American word, and the tribe that was living in the coastal areas here were the Wampanoags. Now, they spoke a language called Algonquin, and depending on their exact location, the Wampanoags would be subsected down into smaller little tribal units, depending on the area. For example, down in Plymouth, the people down there were known as the Patuxets. The same Wampanoags, basically, that was down on the Cape and on the islands, were called the Nausets. But the people up here were called the Massachusetts. Massachusetts means the people living by the Great Hills. And the Great Hills, of course, were the Blue Hills here, just to the south of Boston. The town I'm in at the moment is part of the Blue Hills, of course, and it's the part that's in the town of Milton. So Massachusetts is an Algonquin word meaning the people of the Great Hills, simply describing the people that lived in the vicinity of the Great Hills, that being the Blue Hills. Now, I'll also tell you where Boston got its name. Boston was a peninsula known as Shawmut Peninsula, S-H-A-W-M-U-T. Shawmut is a Native American word meaning clean water, because in that peninsula there was a nice well producing clean water. The first English inhabitant of that peninsula was a fellow called William Blackstone, sometimes known as William Blackstone. He was a part of a different expedition coming out here in 1622 that failed. They were about 10 miles south of here in a place called Wessagusset. And he decides to live as a hermit on that peninsula from 1624 onwards. When the Puritans came in great numbers into that area in 1630, he will, after seeing the water they were drinking over there in Charlestown, where they had first settled, one of the places they first settled, that water would be described as dark and dank and diseased. So he's going to invite some of them at least into the peninsula. After all, it's called Shawmut Peninsula. On the way over, he will ask them a very simple question, which was, well, guys, where are you from over in England? And they would reply simply, we're from the county of Lincolnshire, a small little town called Boston. And needless to say, that then is what gives the modern Boston its name from the town in England called Boston. Now, to get to the root of the name, you have to go back to the old Boston in England. That derives its name from a fellow called Saint Botolph, Botolph, Saint Botolph. He died in the year 681 AD, which is 1,000 years basically before this happened at all. Now, he will have a little monastery there in a small little town, and in the old Saxon language, another name for a town is Stone, S-T-O-N-E, Stone. And it's going to be named after him, so it's going to be called Botolph Stone for that reason. And that, in the fullness of time, is going to be shortened down simply to Boston. So that's where the original Boston gets its name. That's where the modern Massachusetts Boston gets its name from the original. And that is the story of what I do, what is the story of where Massachusetts got its name, and indeed Boston got its name as well. I will be producing a huge amount of videos. I intend to tell the entire story of the United States in little 5-minute or 10-minute sections like this, to make it easy enough for people to understand and to follow along. And there is a heck of a lot of a story to tell. Anyway, that's just the introduction. Thank you very much for watching.